The time has finally arrived. As Bingham and Lone Peak terrorized opponents week after week, the anticipation for this date increased more and more. Two nationally ranked programs vying for a berth in the Class 5A state championship. Neither team has lost to an opponent residing in Utah. It's a battle of epic proportions, and only one can survive. This is Campus Takeover, brought to you by Trib Preps. Each week we'll visit the campus of one of Friday night's marquee matchups. We'll break down key storylines and talk with players and coaches from both teams. And afterward, we'll pick the winners of the biggest games. Hit it! Deal us a pair of three. Each episode will highlight 3 breakout players and 3 surprise teams that caught our attention from the previous week. 1 week after beating 3rd seed Stansbury in the first round, the 6th-seeded Snow Canyon Warriors upset Desert Hills on the road, beating the Thunder for the first time since 2008 when Tyson DeLond caught a touchdown pass in the fourth quarter with less than 20 seconds to go. South Summit running back Isaac Tillett led the Wildcats to their 21st consecutive victory in the 2A semifinals with 205 yards on the ground, his second highest output of the season with 2 touchdowns on 17 carries. Logan quarterback Hunter Horsley led the Grizzlies to a 45-0 win against Cedar. At this point in time in the season, there are no surprises. We're here on the campus of Lone Peak, and the Knights are behind us in preparation for their 5A semifinal match against the top team in the state, the Bingham Miners. Welcome to Campus Takeover. I'm Trevor Phibbs, this is Kevin Morris, and this is birthday boy Tom Wharton. Now, Bingham has one of the best defensive units in the state. There's no doubt about it. Their defensive front, it seems like every one of them is going to be playing at the next level. They have a phenomenal linebacker in Parker Workman. Their secondary gets it done. It's just really hard to move the ball against them. What do you like about them?
It all starts with the defensive line. It starts with Jay Tufeli. That guy takes up a ton of space, and he takes up a ton of offensive linemen. For instance, Jordan tried to double team him and had the running back in to help, so actually he was triple teamed, still got a sack. I mean, that's the kind of motor that this kid has. He's able to get through whatever the offensive line is throwing at him. That allows the defense, that opens up things for the linebackers as well. What happens is that if you have 2 or 3 guys focusing on one guy, you're opening up possibilities for the rest of your defense. It's leaving guys open to make plays, and that's what Bingham does. Is that defensive line is so good that it makes the offense focus so much on them that it frees up the rest of that defense in order to make plays, and it works really well. Bingham uses that to perfection. If what they do is they don't give the opposing offense much time to throw the ball, so the quarterback has to make a very quick read and get rid of the ball. It takes away the big plays because you don't have the time to throw it down the field.
Offensively, Bingham employs a running back by committee. They use 3 running backs, Javante Smith, Brady Atkin, and Elvis the King, thank you very much, Vakapuna. They rotate freely, and in high school it's difficult to prepare for one running back, let alone 3 that are capable of hurting you in multiple ways. What does each one of those running back bring to the table?
All right, so first you got Smith, and Smith is a guy, man, he explodes when he sees a hole. He just runs right through it, and then he just keeps going. Zoop! Back to our current stage. Zoop! He's gone. All right, then you've got Atkin, and what he does is they use him more to run to the outside. He kind of tests the outer limits of the defense. So he's real big on trying to hit the outside, and then he's gone. And then you got Elvis, my boy Elvis. And they use him kind of as a power running back. Now, he's got speed, and I'm not saying that any of the guys aren't powerful or that they don't have speed, but Elvis, he's the guy, he's the bowling ball. He'll run you over. Bam! He hits the hole and he's into the end zone. That's how they use the 3 of them, and they use them really well. So if you want a little of the outside action, you go Atkin. If you want a little bit of the boom, he's gone, you go Smith. If you want the bam, go with Elvis.
Lone Peak is a blowout machine, Tom. Their closest match was a 37-21 decision against Woods Cross, which they had a 30-point lead in that game. You've covered preps for 50 years. Have you ever seen a program like Lone Peak completely embarrass program after program, week after week?
I'm sure I have. I'm sure that there have been dominant teams in the past. Lone Peak is very, very good. They do a lot of good things offensively. Talmadge Gunther is one of the better quarterbacks that I've seen this year. He makes great decisions, and he is going to test Bingham's fine defense because he makes good decisions, he makes them quick, and he's got some really good receivers. Their defense is also very underrated. They don't give up very many points. I expect this one to be a low-scoring game with both defenses being pretty good.
You mentioned their quarterback, Talmadge Gunther. The only thing I've seen that's been able to stop him was against Timpview. He said he had a bad Subway sandwich and his stomach was upset the entire game. He still had like 200 yards of offense in that game. He's been fantastic. Tom, you saw the Knights beat Herriman 30-0. Bingham beat that Herriman team 6-0. Now, granted, it was the last week of the season for Lone Peak compared to Bingham playing them in the second week, but what does that say about the team behind us?
The talent behind us is very good. This is a very good defensive team, and I suspect that Bingham might struggle with it a little bit. Look for, again, a low-scoring game in this one.
Matt Deegan took over the starting quarterback position in week 3 against Bishop Gorman, and he's kind of like the Dexter of high school football. He's a silent killer. He's not going to impress you that much. He's not going to show on the highlights. You're not going to get knocked over watching him on film, but all of a sudden he's leading scoring drive after scoring drive. What do you like about his game?
It's his game management, is that he'll throw short passes to get it out to the guys on the edge in order to create some space and in order to get them involved in the game. But he doesn't take a lot of risks. You're right. He isn't. You look back a couple years ago at Pineview, and they had Cody Wilstead, and he would throw the ball 75 yards in the air, and he'd hit the guy on his hands, and you go, "Wow, holy smolies!" That's just not what this kid does. What he does is he makes smart passes. He doesn't take unnecessary risks most of the time. And so what he does is he allows the offense the time to gain yards in chunks, but not these enormous chunks. And it's a formula that's worked for many years for Bingham, is you don't take these big risks through the air. You just manage the game. If there's something there, you take advantage of it. And if there isn't, you keep the ball on the ground. I mean, he can run a little bit too. He can run a little bit, and if the defense is going to just focus on a pass, he'll take off a little bit. He'll get you 7 or 8 yards. He'll get you first down if you need it. But he doesn't take unnecessary risks, and that's what makes Bingham hard to beat, is that if they aren't taking these unnecessary risks, if they aren't chucking the ball up there and just hoping, it's really tough to create turnovers against him.
So Lone Peak has 10 players that have recorded 30 or more tackles. They've forced 22 turnovers. They have 29 sacks. I mean, we talk a lot about Lone Peak's offense, but their defense isn't shabby either, Tom.
They pretty much just blanked Herriman. Herriman had no answers for what they were doing. They are an excellent team. This defense is going to decide this game.
Kevin, this is probably perhaps the most difficult question I've asked you all season. What is the recipe to beat Bingham?
I don't think I know. Bishop Gorman was able to do it, but Bishop Gorman had a surplus of phenomenal athletes. Lone Peak has the closest, and I think the Lone Peak has the best chance of beating Bingham. But I really think what has to happen is Bingham needs to make a couple of mistakes. They need to throw an interception or two. They need to fumble the ball once or twice. I think Lone Peak absolutely has the ability to capitalize on those mistakes. The problem is Bingham doesn't make mistakes, and their defense is so stinking good, and they don't give you an opportunity to do much. You have to make a decision on offense so quickly against Bingham because their defensive line, they collapse the pocket so quickly. It takes phenomenal timing in order to get a sustained drive going against Bingham because they're so fast, they're so strong. Lone Peak is the best Utah school that Bingham is going to face, but I don't know if they have enough weapons to beat them.
So back to Tom, as I said earlier, you've covered preps in this state for 50 years. How often does a team that's 12-0 be considered an underdog? And that's exactly what Lone Peak will be, and how do they pull the upset?
Lone Peak wins this game by playing its great defense, getting a couple of turnovers, and holding Bingham below its average. What could be a factor this week is the weather is changing. It will be really interesting if we have snow or rain on Friday at Rice-Eccles Stadium. It's going to be a good game, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
We are here with Lone Peak coach Mike Mauk. His team is getting ready to play Bingham in the 5A semifinals. Now, as a coach, how many games have you coached in this magnitude where you're undefeated, Bingham's 11-1, and everybody has been waiting for this?
Well, to tell you the truth, as a head coach, it probably is one of the most important games I've coached. I've been involved in some great ball games as an assistant. I was an assistant here when Lone Peak High School took the state championship under Tony McGarry. Just had a great experience with Tony and his program. But just for as far as being the head coach, it is a big game and one that we're obviously really looking forward to.
Bingham has a great defense. How do you move the ball against them?
As I watched film over the weekend, normally you try to find a weak spot, and so far I haven't found one. That D-line they have is just absolutely incredible. The defense is stellar in every way. Obviously, it's going to be a challenge, but we've done really quite well throughout the season, and we're hoping to duplicate that. But you're right. That's the strength of their team, and there's just not a weakness out there as far as I can see.
I mean, I could ask the same question to Bingham. How do they stop you?
Well, we've had a lot of good success so far. We've got a lot of good athletes we can throw to, some good running backs. The thing I've really liked about our kids is they come out prepared to play. They're enthusiastic. The unity has just been incredible with this group of kids. Probably this is one of the most enjoyable group of kids I've worked with. But they just come out with a lot of confidence, a lot of belief. It's not arrogance, but just a lot of strong and active confidence they have, and again, a lot of enthusiasm. And I think that's really been a plus for us so far.
Now, I watched you guys beat Herriman 30-0 for the region championship a couple of weeks ago. What's better, your defense or your offense?
Well, that's hard to say. I think we've had ball games throughout the season where one has maybe been a little bit better than the other, but that's the thing that's really made us a strong team is we're very balanced. We've been very solid defensively and offensively, and I think that's obviously what you have to have in order to compete for a championship. And but the defense, man, it really has been tremendous all season, and as they say, that's the thing that wins championships ultimately is your defense, because occasionally your offense is going to sputter a little bit, and my defensive coaches, Jared Harward, my offensive coordinator, they've really done a super job. They really have.
Now, when Wasatch Front residents and football fans think of Lone Peak right now, they probably think of Chase Hansen, but Chase has got a little brother on this team too, doesn't he?
Absolutely. It's Dakota. He's a junior, and he's a great quarterback as well. He's been playing some other positions for us as well. But great quarterback as well, and he's going to have his time too, where he's really going to shine and be one of the great quarterbacks here at Lone Peak High School.
How much sleep are you getting these days?
To tell you the truth, I need to be getting a lot more. That's always been my downside, lack of sleep, but especially during the football season, I'll admit I probably should get a little bit more. But when you come out with these kids, you get excited, you get the adrenaline flowing, and really, the lack of sleep is kind of irrelevant by the time you get out here with the kids.
We are here with Lone Peak quarterback Talmadge Gunther and linebacker Britton Bettridge, and they're getting ready to play Bingham in probably the biggest game of their career. Talmadge, you have had a great season. Probably the only thing that has slowed you down is a Subway sandwich at Timpview. Are you eating Subway still?
Actually, I haven't eaten Subway since then, but just PB&Js.
PB&Js, okay. Britton, Lone Peak gets a lot of publicity for its offense. You guys score a lot of points, but defensively, you're no slouch. What makes it so difficult to score the ball against you guys?
I think our physicality. I think a lot of, ever since the first of the season, our line has been very underrated, and I think that's where it all starts. The front four, Parker McGee and Preston Lewis, all those guys, very physical. You
guys are undefeated, but you're going to be the underdog in this game. Bingham is the favorite. Is that disrespectful, or is that motivating to you guys that you're picked to lose and you're undefeated?
I think there's a lot of respect for Bingham, and with them winning 2 titles in a row and this being their 3rd year, and a lot of hype for them, I think they're a very respectable team, and I don't think they're underrated at all. I think the hype's real.
For you, Talmadge, what is it going to take to move the ball consistently against Bingham, who arguably has the best defense in the state?
Yeah, they definitely have a great defense, and it's not going to be anything easy for sure. The best defense we'll have played for sure. But I think that, it's just going to take hanging in there. It's not going to be pretty. That's what our coach always tells us, that it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to look good. It's just got to get done. And so I think that as long as we just keep grinding it out, we can start moving the ball and do things.
You would probably know better than anybody, but a lot of people are going to be focusing in the trenches. Bingham's defensive line is very hyped, very highly recruited. How do you feel about the 5 up front protecting you?
I love my boys up front. I know they're going to do their best. That's all I can ask them to do. And I think that they're probably they're a part of this team that's really unsung heroes. They have stepped up huge in a lot of games, and they don't maybe get the media or the attention for that, but they do a really good job, and I trust those guys for sure.
That brings us to the pick segment, where these two right now have a 1-game lead over myself.
And really, I just did that to help Tom out. Today's his birthday. I figured that last week I made you call me the champ. So this is going to be awkward for viewers, but you need to call both of us the champ today, Trevor.
I can't do it anymore. I cannot refer to grown men as the champ. It just makes me uncomfortable.
Champ squared?
Champ squared. Let's just go
Fair
champ
enough.
squared.
If you want to go with just squared, we'll know.
We're in this group, chump squared.
So instead, we have picked 7 games on camera all season, but there's only 9 left. So let's do 2 more because we know that you want to see it. Well, at least we think you do. The first game is going to be on Saturday. We'll start up there. Diamond Ranch versus Kanab. It was originally scheduled to take place at Weber State. It has since moved to southern Utah, and there is bad blood here. After Kanab clinched its first championship game appearance since 2008, Diamond Ranch players taunted the Cowboys, who quickly returned fire while they celebrated. Neither program shies away from reality. They're not fond of one another, but the Diamondbacks are more talented than any team in the classification by a long margin, as evident by their 28-0 win against the Pokes. Is there any chance of an upset, or does Diamond Ranch complete its perfect season?
Diamond Ranch completes its perfect season. That said, Kanab will have plenty of motivation in this game. Diamond Ranch knocked Kanab out in the semifinals last year by coming back in the fourth quarter in one of the more emotional wins for Diamond Ranch. I think Diamond Ranch has just got too much going for it. I like the Diamondbacks in this one.
I love me the Pokes. They got me. They allowed me to continue to hold the lead in Pick'em. Trevor was down at the game, and he was periscoping the kick by Duchesne to win it. I think it's possible that the people in southern Utah heard me yell when Duchesne missed it, because it meant my Pokes had won. We're off that boat now. Diamond Ranch is going to win this game. I think the Diamond Ranch has more talent here. I think it's been a great run by Kanab to get to this far, to get to the state championship game. As Trevor said, there's bad blood there, but unfortunately, bad blood only gets you so far. Talent gets you the rest of the way, and Diamond Ranch has it. They're going to win this one.
Diamond Ranch has shut out 4 straight opponents dating back to that Kanab win, and the varsity defense hasn't allowed a single point since September 4th. The talent disparity is not even close, so expect Kanab to try and milk the clock with long, sustained drives, which it was able to do against Duchesne in the semifinals, but I don't think the Pokes will be able to move the ball consistently for points, and I think the Diamond Ranch wins its first state championship since becoming a sanctioned program 5 years ago. The Class 2A state championship between South Summit and Beaver will remain the same. It's going to be at Weber State. Now ranked in the statewide top 25, winners of 21 straight, the longest active streak in the Beehive, 2 consecutive state titles, and an advantage not found in the box scores, the resume South Summit has attached to its name right now. The Wildcats own a mental intimidation over most opponents before the coin flip even takes place. But Beaver is no slouch. The Beavers have not lost within the classification, and quarterback Matthew Roberts said they're not worried because they have a solid team too. Should they be concerned, Tom?
In a word, yes, Beaver should be concerned. South Summit has been the dominant 2A program the last 2 years. They're unbeaten this year. I can't see South Summit losing this game. Anything's possible. Beaver has one of the great football traditions in all of Utah, but I got to go with South Summit in this game.
Last week on the show, I talked about Beaver's defense, how I really liked the Beavers' defense and how it was an attacking defense. It played really well. They're going to need that if they're going to win this game. South Summit brings in an offensive attack that's really tough to stop. They're able to move the ball really well. And teams just haven't been able to stop them. I think that continues here in the state championship game. I think South Summit's going to bring home another one up to the fine folks in Camas. I think that South Summit just has a little bit too much for Beaver to knock them off.
Beaver coach Steve Hutchings quipped after his team secured its first state championship appearance since 1992 that South Summit hasn't lost a game in what seems like 14 years. The reasoning behind the success of the Wildcats is discipline. They're incredibly crisp with the triple option. They're never out of position defensively, and they play clean, mistake-free football. You're going to win a lot of football games doing those three things. The Beavers will challenge in this game. Matthew Roberts is pretty dynamic, but Isaac Tillett is the best player in the classification, and the Wildcats are going to win their third straight state championship. Juan Diego and Morgan will clash for the Class 3A championship. Now, this game is closer than some people might think. Juan Diego has been the odds-on favorite to win the championship from the onset, but Morgan has improved each week following its 14-point loss to the Soaring Eagle. 7 points separated that game in the fourth quarter, and the Trojans have not lost since that mid-September evening. Can Morgan shock the state by winning its first state title since 1997?
I go back to the great days of Jan Smith at Morgan when they had one of the top football programs in that classification in the state, and I think this has the potential to be a really good game judging on the early results, but I think Juan Diego wins this game.
Last week we talked about Morgan's defense, and Morgan's defense was so good. Ooh, Morgan's defense, yay, better than USC, woo. It was the offense that ended up carrying Morgan to the state title game. Yeah, they don't have an offense to compete with Juan Diego, I don't think. I think Juan Diego is just a little too strong there. Trevor talked about it last week with that triple option offense. It's just so hard because you aren't used to seeing it. I mean, you saw what Navy did this past weekend. Navy won with it because you don't know what you're doing. There are guys running here, there's guys running there. Who are you going to tackle? You don't know because you don't know who has the ball. You never see it. You just never can get comfortable against that offense. You know, you think you're like, oh, I'm going to nail that guy. And boom, wrong guy. Oops, different guy has the ball. That's what Juan Diego does, and they do it really well. They've got size. They have speed. They've got what it takes on offense and defense. I just don't think that Morgan can beat them. I think the Soaring Eagle bring home a state championship to the fine folks of Draper.
I really like Morgan. I saw him for the first time in their win against North St. Pete in the semifinals. That's a balanced football team that isn't afraid to gamble. The Trojans play to win, and I love that characteristic. Too many teams hesitate with conservative play calling, trying to survive rather than trying to beat somebody. Morgan doesn't do that. They're here to win. And Spencer Larson is one fast son of a gun. He had 385 all-purpose yards, exceeding a 100-yard plateau in rushing and receiving against the Hawks. Like I said, I really, really like Morgan, and I've gone back and forth, but I'm siding with the Eagle. Defensively, I think Juan Diego can outmuscle Morgan and gradually wear them down on offense. Caden Hayward is a beast in the backfield, and Josh Vasquez does it all. Juan Diego wins its first state championship since 2010. We're switching venues. We're now at Rice-Eccles Stadium. On Thursday, Snow Canyon and Logan will battle in the 3AA semifinals. Now, this is a huge mismatch on paper. Logan has been the best team in the classification all season long, while Snow Canyon entered the postseason by default. Because 3AA only has 13 teams, every team in the Southern Division qualified automatically. The Warriors were the last-place team in that division. Now, this is where it gets interesting, though. The past three champions in this classification have been from the South and ranked as a 3 seed or lower. Can Snow Canyon keep up the incredible run of underdogs with a massive upset of the Grizzlies?
I don't think Snow Canyon has the horses to stay with Logan. Logan in the games against the Washington County schools this year has just been absolutely dominant. Snow Canyon's had a nice year, but it ends Thursday. I'm going with the Grizzlies.
Last week, I extolled the virtues of the old-time Region 9. Remember that when I said that Hurricane was going to go and they were going to beat Tooele? I just got the wrong Region 9 team. Yep, my bad. Oops. Snow Canyon. See, I like Snow Canyon and have since they went and they beat Dixie. That's when I was like, you know what? Old Snow Canyon there? No. They aren't so bad. However, they're running into Logan. And Logan just toyed with Cedar City in the quarterfinals. I mean, that game was over after the first quarter. Logan just, that offense, no, you can't slow that down. They did a really good job of moving the ball. They just throw the ball everywhere. It's, you know, when you go and you see the numbers that Luke Falk is putting up at Washington State, you're like, yeah, it makes sense because that's what he did in high school. And Mike Favero, the coach up at Logan, he hasn't changed the offense. It's still snap the ball, throw it, snap the ball, throw it. Maybe a run here or there if it's there. If not, just throw it again. Logan's defense also wasn't too shabby. They picked off a couple passes against Cedar to get the offense better chances. I don't see a way in which Snow Canyon knocks off Logan, which goes against everything that I said last week about old-time Region 9 schools. We'll get to that maybe in a little bit later pick.
Snow Canyon is a great story, but I think the win against Desert Hills vacuumed up all the upset magic. Logan is just too good. Hunter Horsley is the best quarterback in the classification, and he has multiple weapons at his disposal, but where the Grizzlies excel is actually on defense. The dark side unjustly is overshadowed by the success of the offense, but Ben Miller, Troy Murray, Eric Lobb, and Colton Hatch, I mean, the list goes on. Those guys are the real deal, and I would be shocked if Logan loses this game. The first game of the Class 4A semifinals is Springville versus East, and we've talked a lot about Springville's defense, and we're going to find out exactly how good they are. East offense is moving at a ridiculous pace right now. The Devils are undefeated, but are considered pretty substantial underdogs. Is that justified?
Even though this is the third time we've been to Utah County this year to do campus takeover, including Springville, we probably have a little bit of a Salt Lake bias because we see East more than we see Springville. That said, East looked very good in the game I covered against Highland. Johnny Lang is a fine quarterback. If Springville is going to win this game, they need to get ahead early because East cannot pass. That said, I think East wins, but a fairly low-scoring game.
Tom is absolutely right. East cannot throw the football. They can't do it. They can run it, and they can run it pretty well, and that's going to be enough for them here. But this is a problem for East. If you can't throw the football, the other team can focus completely and entirely on your running game. Now, East was able to use its defense also to get past Alta and, create some short fields in order to win that game. And then they break off a couple big runs. That's great. It worked, and it's going to work again. But I know. Last week I told Trevor not to look ahead. But I'm looking ahead a little bit. And East needs to figure out a way to throw the ball, or they're going to be in big trouble. Not this week, but maybe next week. I like East in this game, but you have to throw the football.
Hello, Kevin. They are a running team. That's why they don't need to throw the ball. You don't need to throw the ball when you're averaging more than 400 yards on the ground per game. Everybody knows they can't throw the ball, but has that stopped them? No, it really hasn't. And so, yeah, Johnny Lang is not the most accurate downfield passer, but he runs a 4.3, and that's really fast. I don't know if you can run a 4.3, Kevin. They don't need to throw the ball. I mean, I was thinking of another analysis of this, but Kevin's putting me on the spot, and Kevin's going to be wrong. Leopards are going to run and run and run and run and run and run all the way to the state championship. Following East and Springville will be Highland and three-time defending champion Timpview. Has Highland recovered from the craziness of the quarterfinals? In case you missed it, Highland overcame a 21-point fourth-quarter deficit in 3 minutes with 2 onside kicks. They kicked a 45-yard field goal in the first overtime, got a miraculous interception in the second overtime, and beat Corner Canyon. Timpview is seeking its 4th straight Class 4A title. Will the Thunderbirds get the opportunity to defend their throne next week?
I was on the sidelines for that incredible Highland Corner Canyon finish, and the Highland Rams are on an incredible high after that game. They will be ready for the semifinals. They're a good team. I am not sure that their offense is good enough to stay with Timpview, however. I like the Thunderbirds in this one.
Highland. Oh, Highland. You're killing me, Rams. Killing me. Do you get that I would be ahead of Tom and Pick'em if not for that great comeback? Now, congratulations on that, by the way. That was awesome. What a comeback. Great job, guys. Corner Canyon. That's all I'm saying about that. All right, so Highland, man, great job getting to this point. You've reached Rice Eccles. It's a great accomplishment. It really is. Timpview, you were expected to be here. We knew it. I knew it. You knew it. Pretty much all of Utah knew it. And I like Timpview to continue its march toward another state championship just based on, they've got some really, really dynamic weapons on offense. I like the way that Timpview moves the ball. You just throw it up there to Nakua. He'll get it. Don't worry. All right. I really like Timpview to get it done here. Timpview also has a decent defense. Kerry Whittingham knows how to win at Rice Eccles. He's proven it time and time again. I like Timpview to reach the state championship game.
Timpview has not won in typical T-Bird fashion. I've said that several times this season, but here they are once again. They belong here, and until they lose in the playoffs, it's hard to argue against them. It's incredible to think that Kerry Whittingham is 14-0 in the postseason as the head coach in Provo. Samson Nakua and Fielding Wallace are matchup nightmares on the outskirts, and Timpview's defense is disciplined. That's the key, is disciplined enough to stop Highland's triple option attack. Highland is another great story, but this is the final chapter for the Rams. Staying at Rice Eccles Stadium, but moving on to Friday, it's the second game of the Class 3AA semifinals between Dixie and Tooele. Tooele was tired of being referred to as a good team. The Buffaloes delivered the most impressive result of the quarterfinals with its thrashing of Herriman, which despite being the lower seed on the road was considered the favorite against Tooele. Well, Buff fans, you're the underdog again. Dixie has long been considered the best team from the Southern Division. The Flyers could secure the title of a dynasty if they defend their title for the third time in 4 years. Any shot, Tooele plays spoiler.
Tooele is a very good, very disciplined team. I was impressed with them when I watched them dominate Stansbury at Stansbury in a rivalry game. They've got a very good running attack. That said, I don't think they've got the horses to stay with Dixie and Trey Miller. I like the Flyers in this one.
Now, a little bit earlier, I said I recalled the ghosts of Region 9 past, and I said you don't bet against Region 9 unless you're playing Logan, because Logan's going to win. But in this case, I'm going back to old school Region 9. I believe the Flyers have the weapons to get it done. Now, I did mention about how Snow Canyon had beaten Dixie, and that was a good win for Snow Canyon. Dixie, man, they just shook that off. Shake it off. No worries there. They're fine. They're going to go in. Tooele put up a really good, put together a good game plan. They went in there with their running attack. They're just going to cram it down your throat. They know what's coming. The other team knows what's coming. The thing is, Dixie's going to stop it. So I think that Dixie gets by Tooele and makes it back to Rice Eccles for the chance to win another state title.
Tooele has returned to the turf for the first time since Kyle Brady led the Buffaloes as a player to the state championship in 2002. The parity in the semifinals with two teams from the north and two teams from the south is great for high school football, and I think the north and the south will square off for the title next week too. Dixie is the better football team here. Trey Miller has been great all season, and Zach Harrah can really chuck it around. Tooele played Logan closely, and I'll think they'll hang with the Flyers, but in the end, Dixie will move on. The first game of the Class 5A semifinals is undefeated Skyview versus hot Herriman. Herriman has never been this far. Now in its 6th year of existence, it has already established the highest win total in school history. Skyview, on the other hand, has not played for a state championship since 1987. The Mustangs have scored 91 points in 2 playoff wins after losing to Lone Peak 30-0 in the final week of the regular season, while the Bobcats needed everything to get past Pleasant Grove. How do you see this playing out, Tom?
I've got to go with Skyview in this game, but it is almost a pick'em game. It'll be Herriman's excellent defense against Skyview and Garrison Beach and Bryce Mortensen's offense. In this case, I think the Bobcats are going to be better, but just by a hair.
Herriman, the way that Herriman has been winning is Herriman has been running the ball. You know that they're going to run the ball, and yet they're still able to do it. It's worked really well. It's what has allowed them to get this far. The difference, though, I think, is that Skyview has the ability defensively to end that trend. That they have the ability defensively to slow down and or stop Herriman. The other thing that Skyview's offense is multifaceted. They have the ability to throw the ball. We've seen that. They proved that against Pleasant Grove, but they can also run the ball. I think that Skyview's running game is a little underrated. I know that we haven't talked a lot about that, and that's a shame because Skyview can run the ball, and they can run the ball well. It plays off of the passing game, and that defenses are forced to focus on the pass, which opens up the running lanes a little bit. Whether it's their running back, their quarterback, either one has the ability to pick up first downs on the ground. I think that Skyview is going to continue making that march toward achieving that first state championship in school history by winning this game and reaching the title game.
Skyview is undefeated, and I've been on the Bobcats train all season long. But Herriman is hitting its stride at the right juncture. That Lone Peak loss was a real eye-opener, and that being said, I think the entire season is a better indicator. Brighton and Fremont were mediocre wins for the Mustangs. Skyview is a much different animal. I'm siding with the Bobcats. That brings us to the game of the week. Why we're here. Bingham will play Lone Peak. Bingham has not lost to an in-state program since November 9th of 2012. Collectively, these two programs have dominated 23 opponents in a row. Lone Peak's average margin of victory is off the charts. These two have been the best programs in the state the entire season. Both are nationally ranked. It has all the ingredients to be a special game. Who prevails?
Ooh, and we're here on November 9th, 2015. An omen? Perhaps. I think not. Bingham is going to be picked until Bingham loses. And that hasn't happened very often, as Trevor said. I like the Miners in this one, but not by very far. Lone Peak is going to give them perhaps the biggest test they've had in the last 3 or 4 years in state.
I think when it comes to this game, you have to look at the strengths of each team. When you look at Lone Peak, you say, all right, what is their strength? And I think it's their offense. I think that they have the ability to move the ball really well, whether it's on the ground or through the air. Mostly, I think that their passing game is really one of the best in the state. Then you have to look at Bingham. What does Bingham do really well? It's their defense. Man, their defensive line is solid. We've talked a little bit about it already. So then you say, all right, well, whose strength is better than the other ones? And I think Bingham's defense is slightly better than Lone Peak's offense. Then, all right, so now you take the other side and you say, all right, well, what about Bingham's offense? Pretty solid. They've got a great running attack. They come at you with a three-headed monster. So then you look at Lone Peak's defense and you say, can Lone Peak's defense stop Bingham's offense? Yeah, their defense is pretty solid too. And that's why I have to agree with Tom. I think that this game has the makings of being a fantastic football game. But I think that in the end, Bingham has a slight edge. And I think that what both these guys have said is right, is that until an in-state opponent knocks off Bingham, you got to go with Bingham. And that's why I'm going to go with Bingham.
Bingham defensive end Longi Tufua said, this particular team is the most disrespected team he's ever been a part of. To put that in perspective, Bingham is the 2-time defending champs. They've won 36 straight games against Utah opponents. The Miners have one of the best defensive units I've ever seen at the high school level. Offensively, they're hardly matched in the trenches. They rotate seamlessly between 3 tailbacks, and Matt Deegan is deceptively deadly at quarterback. This team feels disrespected. That is bad news for Lone Peak. This is going to be a war, one that Bingham wins. That's going to do it for us here at Campus Takeover. It's the second to last episode. Championships are next week for the higher classifications. As always, we appreciate you joining us.
And as Fat Elvis would say, thank you. Thank you very much for watching.